Have you ever had to produce a large document, a large amount of writing in a short amount of time? That's what happened to me this week, and I'm making this extra video to help you guys out, to share with you some of the lessons learned that I had from putting together a 300-page document in 3 days. So my name's Chris, this is Engineered Upgrade, where I share the tips, tricks, lessons learned with professionals to help improve their value in the workplace. And in this video, I want to share with you the 3 lessons that I learned from putting together a 300-page document in 3 days. So lesson number 1, something on paper is more important than trying to be correct. So what happened was we didn't have just 3 days to put this document together. We had quite a long time, 2 weeks. And it had gone around and around, and people had gathered lots of information, and people had the right ideas about what was going to go in this document, but they didn't actually put it on paper. So when it came my responsibility to clean this up, I'm an engineering consultant. This was a professional piece of writing that we had to do. So when it became my responsibility to clean this up, the first thing I did was get everyone to put something on paper. I said, even if it's wrong, as long as it's on paper, we've got a good starting point. You might have noticed that this is an exam trick that I think I first learned in high school. I think I was first taught this in high school, that when you're sitting an exam, and it's getting towards the end of time and you're running out of time, just write down what you would have done and hopefully you can recover some marks. So that's what we had to do here. We were trying to recover some marks. So something on paper is more important than being correct. Tip number 2, divide and conquer. So we had 300 pages is really tough to do by yourself, even if you had 2 weeks available. So we had a few individuals available to help put this document together. So I'd taken charge and I was responsible for dividing the work out between these individuals and conquering the task. So to divide it out, we made sure to impart the first lesson that something on the paper is the most important thing. Get something on the paper so that we've got something to submit, and then divide it out. Now, a few key things to watch out with dividing it out is that when you're dividing a report to give out to many different people, the first tip I'd say is watch out for the tone of writing. Whoever's responsible for putting together it may have to come through and adjust the tone of the English as you go through later on. So that was my task. I was collecting everything together. This one wasn't so important because the client didn't speak English as the first language, so there was an opportunity for us to maybe be a bit relaxed on some of the language and tone. But the first thing I'd recommend, probably more suitable if you're a native English speaker watching this, you're going to have to watch out for the tone of your writing when you're bringing everything back together. The second thing to watch out for is the format. Now, usually we have someone to help us with the format, someone to help us with the graphic design of a report like this as well. 300 pages to go to a client is something that's usually quite important. However, we can make that a lot easier and condense the time if people stick to some formatting rules. So I've done other videos on this channel about how to format in Word, but the trick here is to use the styles bar to set up your template for people's input using word styles along the top, and then ask people to please stick to that as much as possible. And a lesson that I've said in quite a few other videos is avoid the little quick formatting things on the left in Word. Please don't do that. It's going to become a lot harder when you're trying to compile this report together. There are alternative tools to Word if you're frequently compiling long reports like this. Leave a comment down below if you're interested in that sort of thing, and I'll do a video on some of the alternatives to Word if you're looking at compiling long reports like this. So our third tip then is that designate responsibility with no excuse. So one of the problems with this report is because a lot of people had been asked to provide information into it, they'd all asked someone else to provide the information as well, and they'd gone and asked someone else. So this kind of ties into divide and conquer. So even if you're dividing the report to conquer it, people need to be responsible for those sections. There needs to be someone who's responsible for the first lesson, and that's putting it on the paper. There needs to be someone who's ultimately responsible to put it on the paper. So this particular report was a questionnaire by our client. They'd asked us a series of 16 questions and we had to fill out the answers. And so everyone had the answers to the questions spread around between them, but no one had written on the paper. So when I divided the task to conquer it, I said, okay, each person, we're going to take however many questions each, and we're going to be responsible for putting the information on the paper. No excuses. We had 2 days because the third day was for formatting, but there's no excuses. If the answer's not available, call the other person and find it out. Don't send off an email and say, yes, we're just waiting for this answer. Each person who is assigned a question, and I assigned myself some questions as well, is responsible for making sure the answers are in there correct to the best of our ability. Unfortunately, because we only had 3 days to do it, unfortunately some answers were not as correct as they could be. They were the best we could do in the time we had available, but had we had more time, there would have been improved quality. And so I come from a bit of a project management background as well, and there is that trade-off between cost, time, and quality. So in this case, we were sacrificing quality of the report to make sure that we got it done in a suitable amount of time to improve the time. So to recap those 3 lessons, something on paper is more important than being correct. Number 2, divide and conquer, separate out the work, but when you bring it back together, try to incorporate the tone, try to make it the same tone. Also watch out for the formatting when you separate out a report like that. The third thing is that delegate responsibility, and there's no excuse for not filling it out. So in this case, make sure that the people that are contributing to getting it on the paper take responsibility for getting it on the paper, that they can't pass off, if they do choose to pass off part of it to the people who are best suited to do so, and they do receive that information back, that it goes on the paper and they're responsible for writing it into the document. So they were 3 tips that I learned from putting together a 300-page document in 3 days. Hit like if these tips helped you out. Otherwise, I like to release videos like this where I help professionals improve their value in the workplace by improving the functions that professionals do, or by reducing the resources that they cost to do it. My name's Chris, this is Engineered Upgrade, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.